So, for just gonna preface this with anybody who is interested, we're gonna try to have these regularly. Right now they're set for bi-weekly, but we're trying to play it out and see how these things will play out. So, if you want to host your own, again, it doesn't have to be in this format. Do whichever way you feel comfortable. This is supposed to be more like a show and tell, either. Feel free to show and tell whatever you'd like, anything from your background, anything from past projects, or specific topics that you want to dive into as well. Just feel free to bring it up, and we can, we just message a mod, and we can have this set up. So what I'm going to talk about is a little bit about some of the projects that I've worked on in the past. And I wanted to talk about kind of some of my experiences and compare those experiences from things that didn't really work out to things that have worked out. So I made a couple slides and I'm gonna try to go through it quickly. So if there's any questions at the end, feel free to ask any. So first off, I guess I'll say who I am. My name is Alex. I'm a software engineer. I've been a software engineer for at least 12 years. I've been a Unity hobbyist for at least 15 years. And back when I first started, Unity 3 was the shiz. So, and then now we're on like Unity 6, I think. I've mentored about 24 people as engineers. So I understand a lot of the struggles that a lot of people go through when they first go through learning either software engineering or game development. So I understand them because I've went through them myself, and I've also made a few kids education games and mobile games. So some of the kids games are targeted for kids K through 6, and the mobile games were just for fun. Which coincidentally, I'm gonna talk about one of the mobile games today. Oh, and I decided to make my little fuzzy character because there's a little running theme throughout the presentation, which I think will be fun. So, here's my stat sheet. So this is a stat sheet I made for like basically in 2012 when I first started. I knew a bit about coding from what I've learned through school, but when I first started my first project, I really didn't know any of these other skills. To be honest, I didn't even know I needed any of these other skills. So, I knew a bit about coding. I knew nothing about project management or UI. I knew we needed QA, but I didn't know what we needed. Task management and game design. So basically, I'd say my health strategy was pretty low. But I was very ambitious, I was very confident, and I was very self-driven. So much so to the fact that I thought I could actually run like my own team whenever and just start the project however I wanted. I also learned that a lot of those project managements also need crisis management. And that was also a skill I did not know that I needed, which kind of put me in some hectic situations. So when there were a couple different indie teams, I've been a part of different software engineering teams and indie teams. And I had like a lot of different experiences to share from very large teams function very differently from very small teams. So, and they all lead their teams just differently. Like, if you're a part of like a 3-man team in one place and a 3-man team somewhere else, you can be very sure that the way that the team is managed is very different. There's no guarantee that they're going to run the same way. But with indie teams, obviously, if we believe that we can, that's just awesome because everyone has like a lot of ambition and everybody just wants to do everything they can. However, if you do need some experience in some cases, you'll hit certain walls that you'll realize that, oh, maybe I can't do everything. And those are walls that you need to overcome. It's like, if I can't do everything, do I need to learn skills or do I need to get people? How do I overcome these walls? And I also want to bring up times when our experiences worked and times when some of my experiences have failed. And also, what can you do from my experiences? Oh, okay, cool. I thought the GIF wasn't playing. So a lot of indie teams that I've met, especially in this last GDC, they were very small, very passionate. They were very volatile, meaning that they might have different availabilities, different times, different things where people can all attend and participate, or just very different. They might have their own barriers that they have to overcome. But they were also all very ambitious. And I have never met a team that was like any other before. So one of my first projects was Age of Mercenaries. So this was kind of like when I was trying to make a devlog back then, of like, the idea of this was, it's supposed to be like Dota, basically. And when I was trying to make like a Dota clone, because I really like Dota. I played it way too much, and I still play it too much. In this project, we had 9 people. They were all very ambitious, lively, interesting, and different. But we also did have a lot of challenges too. As we kept developing the project, we kept improving our devlogs, and we just kept having different versions of the devlog. So this was kind of like a devlog, probably about a year into development. Yeah, I don't think there's any sound here. But you can see some of the art that we had, some of the models that we had, some of the levels we were building out. And yeah, some of the gameplay we're trying to do. We didn't really have animations working, but it was just kind of cool that we did have like a whole army-based system. They're attacking each other, so the towers could attack. So it was really cool. And most of the video is pretty much repeating the same thing. We did have a lot of challenges for this. One of the challenges was the fact that we had a few artists and they had very different art styles. So because they had such different art styles, it didn't make the project consistent. So I don't know if you noticed in the last slide, but there were 2 different sets of towers. So it didn't really match the aesthetic of the game. So that was something that I had to learn from in the very beginning, that, oh, you need to have some kind of art direction, because we didn't have any. We're just kind of going at it as best as we could. Second challenge we had was game structure and architecture. I didn't know it yet, but I was planning a pretty large project. And the larger the project is, the more I realized that the game structure is a necessity, because otherwise you end up with spaghetti code, and that becomes a little bit of a problem. Then the next thing was time management and project management. Again, the scope was too large, and everyone has their own life, and the team was made up of people all over the world. So like even now, well, one of the artists that stayed with me from that project, I would have to communicate with him in the morning. So like right now, it would be like 8 p.m. for him or 9 p.m. for him. And if I didn't get to talk to him now, then I wouldn't get to talk to him until it's nighttime. So managing different times and people's different availabilities became like a real problem with indie teams that, again, I also did not know how to actually deal with. And we were kind of, can I go back? There we go. And that kind of took a bit of a toll on all of us, because it would kind of affect our inspiration and our motivation. And inspiration and motivation doesn't last forever, right? If it doesn't last forever, then what exactly are you going off of? Well, at that point, you just have to believe in your team and your own commitment, and see that it just keeps projecting onward from there. So in the project, I learned I was very overwhelmed. I wasn't really sure what to do. I was doing more project management than I was doing coding, because there were 9 of us. I had no idea how to combine the two, code and art. And there were still a ton of problems that like hadn't even happened yet that I learned later on that I wasn't prepared for. And that was kind of a bit of a wake-up call on like how challenging the size of the project was. Then eventually the project failed. Everyone kind of scattered. You know, there was a loss of motivation, and we couldn't really do much else. So I went and I joined a different project. I was like, oh, well, if I can't do it, I should learn from other projects. And the same thing happened, you know, but in different ways. After inspiration is gone, after 3-4 months, you know, it's just work. And a lot of people kind of lose that inspiration after 3-4 months in, and it makes things a lot harder to work with. Like, what do you do with it after there is nothing to look forward to? You know, it's just, you're just working on something that you're not sure is gonna churn out anything. And again, left the project, go to another project. Then they left the project, and this process just kind of kept happening over and over for at least like 12-15 times at this point. And it wasn't fun, and it kind of sucked. Just like Albert Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I think that I had met a lot of these teams for the first time, but I learned that it's something that you have to learn because there's so many different elements that you have to learn. And also, if you're going to lead a project, what are you doing when you're leading the project? Are you crisis managing? Is your scope too big? Can you reduce it? Are you helping people get past blockers? I don't know any of this stuff yet, but it's skills that you need to learn so that you can keep developing your project onward. But there was one person with me the entire time throughout all this, ever since the first project. And that person, it was Nick. This is Nick's avatar. It's kind of funny because he just made this on the fly in like 2 minutes. So Nick, when we first started the first project, he did concept art and he did 3D art. But at the time, he was also a beginner. So, you know, he knew how to do concept art and he knew how to do 3D modeling. But for me, Nick was awesome. You know, he didn't know how to rig. He didn't know how to animate. He doesn't like Unity now. But at the time, he didn't know Unity. His belief in the first project with me was misplaced. He believed in our ability to... He believed in my ability to make the whole project happen. So I mentioned to him before, it's like, I think he believed in me a little too much. He was super ambitious. And he had a high sense of perfectionism. So anyway, as Nick's with me and we're jumping through all these different projects, we would meet a few people who actually would want to do a very large project, brand new people. And their first thought is always, let's make an MMO. And from failing so many projects, not even MMO scale, like we're talking like small enough projects that, you know, hypothetically, if everyone knew what they were doing, they could probably be done within a few years. But they would still have to, one, they would already have to know what they're doing, and two, everyone would still have to have their skill set. Three, they would all have to blend together. But yeah, again, we didn't know any of that yet. But there were a ton of people who just want to make MMOs, and that's just like, don't make an MMO. Just don't. After this failed of projects, we eventually met Sam. And here's Sam's stat sheet. Sam was brand new at coding. He didn't know project management. He knew a little bit about UX UI design because he played with Unity a lot. He knew about a bit of bug fixing and task management. This was like in the beginning, because Sam was trying his best to learn how to be a game developer, but he was also new as well. He was super ambitious, very innovative, very creative, and he was usually dependable most of the time. So in comes in Ludum Dare. So in Ludum Dare, we had to do one that was called 2 buttons. And in Ludum Dare, it's kind of like timed. You have a certain set of hours where you have to complete a project. So all three of us decided to enter. And when we decided to enter, we're just like, oh, okay, let's just make this concept. Let's make a high scores game. And it really helped us out a lot. It was a small project, a small scope, small team. And we ended up making a concept for this project in about an hour. And after about like 5-6 hours of the game, we really liked what we made. I want to talk a little bit about the tools. I might have these next 2 slides backwards. Here's everything that we used for this project. We used Unity. We used Notepad++ as our way of like task management. We used Spine. Spine was literally brand new. This was, I don't even think they started their Kickstarter page yet. And we used Slack to communicate. And that was really about it. That was like everything we used for the entire project. We liked what we developed so much that we just skipped Ludum Dare. We had been working on it. I think the submissions are every 72 hours. I don't remember too well, but like around like hour 70, we're just like, we had something finished to submit to Ludum Dare around like hour like 60. And around 70, we decided, hey, we like what we're making. This is really good. So then the next 6 months, we just kept working on the project. We already had the concept down. So now we're just working on features and integrations for literally 6 months. So like polishing this, polishing art, polishing project minds, just doing everything like that. And eventually we released this game on the Google Play Store around August 2016, or it might have been September. I actually don't remember too well. And that's where we released our first game, Nightmare. Now, it's not on the Google Play Store anymore because they've gone through a bunch of updates and stuff. So if you look for it, you're not going to find it. But it was really polished. It was really clean. It was a high scores game, and the whole concept of the story is that you have Tommy, he's having nightmares, and you, his teddy bear, you're going into his closet like Narnia to go into his nightmares, and you're trying to fight off all of his nightmares. And then eventually you fight off the nightmare boss. And when you fight off the nightmare boss, then you take him out. And the game was really polished. Like, out of all the people we've had playing with it, like no one could break it because we tested it extensively. And we also had other little features we added too, where like you could buy coins and you could do certain weapon upgrades. We had a bunch of different stuff. It was really cool. And this was actually our first feature release project. It was really cool. Sam ended up using this project where he ended up getting his first industry job from it, just because of how polished this whole thing looked. So here's some things that I think kind of worked out from this project versus all the other failed projects. Is we ended up making a very fast concept in like 2 to 4 hours. Like it was, we basically already had a game in 2 to 4 hours. It was a broken game, but it was fun and playable. Yeah, in about 6 hours, it was kind of fun. 30 hours in, and we're just working on features, and then just more features 55 hours in, and then at hour 70, that's where we just decided, you know what, skip Ludum Dare. We're just gonna keep working on this project. And yeah, I think the things that happened on this project that kind of worked out was that it was a small scope, it was a fun concept in a short time, and we had realistic goals. We weren't trying to work so much on the game loop or the interest anymore. We were working on we were working on just features the entire time. We basically had like a polishing phase by like our second day. And that just kind of led to us being able to actually create a project that we could release. And then by the end of this, we ended up leveling up too. So, you know, I at this point, you know, from my work and from doing this, I became a much better coder. Because of this, and of course work, I learned more about project management. I didn't work on UX UI as much as Sam did, but you know, I learned a lot vicariously watching him in his work. We had a lot of QA and bug fixes, and I learned a lot more about game design and more confident in Unity. Unity has so many different features that I can't expect that anybody would know everything about it. And then Sam leveled up too. He became a better coder. I did more like on the project management, and then he did more of the UX UI, because we just kept having bugs all the time. We were just trying to figure out how to solve everything. And he worked a lot more on the design and with Unity's end, and that was awesome. And then for Nick, he did a lot of 2D art, 3D modeling, rigging. He learned Spine and oh, actually, I don't know why the 3D one is in there. And he learned a lot from this project. I don't know if you could tell from the pictures, but the game looked really nice. So, anyway, we go through a few years, few kids games work out, a few more project failures, some teams work out, some don't, you know, just a bunch of ups and downs, right? At this point, I get invited to Varadia. I just got a random Discord message one day. And I was invited by Bigatti, which he might be in the Discord, honestly. I thought the project looked really cool. He was an artist. He was working on a lot of different stuff. And Varadia ended up growing quite a bit. So we end up having about 5 core members. About 3 of us are coders. Yeah, 3 of us are coders. 1 is a designer, and the other one is an artist. But we also had like 5 on-off members. The on-off members are like, I think, musicians that we need sometimes. We did have a voice actor at some point, but they had their own things to do. We also have Nick, who sometimes helps on the project, so he's still with me after all this time. There's Nick. And also met Ron. So Ron was also one of the coders, and I think is a very highly dependable person. So here you could see a little bit of Varadia. This was kind of one of the bugs that we're working out. Yeah, it is a like RPG game, 3D top-down game. Everything, and I mean everything, is from scratch. This project was super ambitious, and you think that from all the experience I've learned, I learned to like scale down. No, this has been very difficult. But we all committed to it, you know, and nobody has left the project, which is kind of astounding. I think that's the one thing that's been the most interesting thing about this whole thing, is that it's kind of a crazy project and no one's left, you know, compared to all the other ones. So we made everything from scratch, and I mean literally everything. So we have a full-on inventory system that we have from scratch. Like, it's so polished that I'm pretty confident that I could separate it and upload it to the asset store, and we can make asset store money. Like, it's really well done. We also have a quest system from scratch. We also have all of the UIs done with UI Toolkit. We have a content dialogue system that integrates with Artisy Draft. We have different character systems. We have, there's this really cool asset called Banshee's Database, BG Database, that's in the Unity Asset Store. Really cool tool. We use this to load all of our quest data, all of the content, all the dialogues, we have an item system. Also, when the character does saves, it saves onto this. Um, and then it just saves like these little profiles, so that we have profiles so so whoever's playing can like save and load the game. And hypothetically speaking, if a user has issues and we really can't figure it out, like we can have them give us both their log and their database, and we'll know exactly what they're doing. And for them, they're just giving us 2 files. And there's a lot more systems built into it. Like we have an NPC system, a drop system. Like it's very customizable. In fact, we really overdid it. All the tools that we use Jira and Confluence, Unity, a lot of asset store tools. Let me see if this will play. There we go. A lot of asset store tools, BGTB. I think it's Nature Manufacturer. It might be Nature Render. We used an external tool called Gaia. Photoshop, RC Draft, Unity Cloud Build. We use Unity Cloud Build to make weekly builds. So, that's basically how our designer can kind of QA the game, because there's always like a new build out every week, and we just kind of post somewhere that says like, oh hey, here's the stuff that I did, and then this is done like all the time. And the last thing is communications. So we also have bi-weekly sprints, a lot of planning, discussion over hot topics, peer reviews for coding, and story planning meetings. So basically, how should the story play out? How should this be working out? What should we be doing? It's a lot of different things that it's basically things that I would do at work, but this has never really worked out for indie teams. So it's a very different way from all the other indie teams of doing things. However, I did learn a lot of things from those indie teams, and I brought all those things with me to this project as well, which is a combination of both the indie teams and stuff I worked on before, which is how we're able to create all this. And I want to show a few pictures of kind of like how the project's looking right now. So these are more like scene pictures. Right now we're still working on adding a few enemies and working on the content. So you can see here all these assets, again, were done from scratch. Here's a couple stuff that Nick had done. And these are like different scene levels. Again, different area from the same scene level. And then the bottom right, you can see a treasure room. This is going to be like a side quest kind of area. And yeah, this was very different versus how the smaller project was done. In this project, it was a much larger project. It was a much larger team. We ended up doing a lot more planning. We would use Jira and Notion. We'd have a lot of documentation in Confluence. Whenever we created a brand new system, these systems were then documented. We would use draw.io to like share things with each other. We would constantly have peer reviews with one another, so we could check like, oh, how should we code this system? How should we communicate with each other? Oh, and if we had crisis with each other, we would say, oh, instead of saying like, oh, that code sucks, we would talk about it more like, oh, that code's pretty different. That's not exactly what I expected. A lot of these different things would change. And the tools, we used a lot of third-party tools. We used a lot of asset store tools, as I kind of went over earlier. And in smaller teams, like the earlier project, we didn't use as many tools. It was very different. We had a much smaller scope. Like really all we used was Notepad and Trello. And to be honest, I really don't even remember us using Trello that much. We had, our documentation was just PR reviews and trying to make readable code for one another. And the only real tool we used was Spine. And of course, whatever art tools that Nick was using to draw in. I don't remember which ones he was using though. But there's also a few cons to this too. So, which is the reason why we needed all this other stuff too. It's very easy to lose scope, and because it's a larger team. So that's why we need all the documentation. It's very easy to get distracted by scope creep and issues that we're not particularly focusing on. So you just get distracted because you want to add all these cool stuff because you're so excited about the project. So finding a way to communicate with everyone would be like, hey, uh, I don't want to discourage you, but I want to tell you that like that might not fit our game. Finding mediums to talk about situations like that kind of made things very different. Good documentation in GDD was very important. And we also all had very different experiences. Meaning, I play a lot of Dota, Warcraft 3, and RTS. So a lot of the inventory system has a context menu. That's when you right click an item and it gives you options, use, drop, and so on. But apparently some of the other people would play games where it's just like, oh, you click it once and it just got used. So context menu just kind of like blew their mind, like, why do we need this? So we would have discussions about everything, including things like that. And finally, because it's a larger project, we use this term at work, which is SMEs, which these are subject matter experts. SMEs basically are like, if you made the inventory system, you're the expert on the inventory system. If you made the quest system, you're the expert on the quest system. If I want to change something, I'm going to talk to the expert on it, because we just had a lot, and it was hard for any one person to remember all this stuff. In the smaller project, it was very different. Easier to plan scope, faster to get features. It was a quick game. It was, it was a very easy game to like find something and fix it or try to figure out who did what. It was easy to work and polish. So we didn't really need SMEs. So in a way, everybody was a SME, and that just kind of made things a lot faster and easier. And that was kind of cool. One thing I would say is very important from all this is that some small teams that I've noticed would try to use large tools for their projects. I don't think that's really needed. I think you should, honestly, I think you should just wait for the problem to happen and then decide, oh, okay, do I need this tool or not? Don't try to prepare for things that haven't happened yet, and then that way you'll end up realizing, oh, maybe that wasn't really such a big issue as I thought it was, or we don't really need this whole big tool for problem X. Just kind of let the experience happen. And also do your best to avoid scope creep. It's kind of inevitable, it's gonna happen, but try to keep your eyes on the goal. Make sure you realize you focus on what you want to focus on. For smaller projects, if it's small enough, it might be okay. Just because you're mostly focusing on features, so you're trying to see kind of what you're working on dessert. You already have the main course. You're just working on dessert at this point. So if you want to get fancy with it, then like, hey, why not? In larger projects, that's harder. Finish the main course before you start working on dessert. And also, you don't need every single tool in the world. Make sure you can trust yourself. If you say you're going to get something done in a week, make sure you can do it. If it's too large, that's okay. Just learn how to break things down smaller, because then that'll help you feel a lot more accomplished. Find good people around you. Make sure you always have good energy. It can get a little toxic, so you want to do your best to also bring good energy, so you also receive good energy from everyone around you. And if it becomes a problem, if scope becomes a problem, make sure you do your best to focus on killing scope. Don't kill the team morale, because that, no matter if everyone decides to stay on the project, it can, you know, kind of discourage people for a while. And always be okay to speak up. You know, you can't fix silence. And also, do not be too hard on yourself. Like, it's all the problems are very unique. So always be kind to yourself and know that no matter what, we're always learning. And that's it. Thank you to my micro talk. Yeah, and if anybody has any questions or if they want to share anything, feel free to. And that's about it. I don't know how I can like invite everybody to, I guess, talk if they want to talk. Oh, also because I played with this auditorium feature before. There's also a chat feature too. I've only been able to open it by hovering over event auditorium, and there's a little chat bubble. And if you hit the chat bubble, there's it should pop up in a chat there too. Let's see. Hey Fuzzy, thanks for the chat. This is cool. I got a question. Can you talk about your experience using the Unity version of GitHub? Were you guys already experienced with it? We used the Unity cloud build. We still used normal GitHub. So the cloud build. So at my regular work, I've used TeamCity and Octopus Deploy. So I was not familiar with Unity Cloud Build, but I was familiar with how it worked, because I've set up Octopus Deploy and TeamCity like from scratch. Like I set up the whole machines and everything from scratch. So it's more of like just working on the UI of it. So it was pretty easy to make it work. I think it just took us like 1 or 2 days. The only time we've ever had a problem was if for some reason we've had to change the like branches for whatever reason, because sometimes we had to nuke our branches because we really messed up, and that would kind of affect cloud build. So then we would have to nuke the branch and then fix it in cloud build so it would keep building correctly. So that was a little bit of an issue. But otherwise, yeah, it's a pretty fun tool. We use it a lot. I think and it also posts to Discord too, if I could find it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Woo! Yeah, so just so you know, because basically we can invite you all to speak, or you can request to speak by clicking the little see, an icon, like looks like a little hand, right? And then you'll get a little dialogue that says accept. And the problem was that dialogue was hidden behind another window, which is why you couldn't hear me. I couldn't find that little button to accept. So just an FYI, if anybody wants to talk, just request to speak, and then we can all chat together.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, wow, thanks, Fuzzy. That was great. 5 years of experience wrapped up into what 30-minute presentation. Thanks so much, because there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there was quite a number of things that we had worked on, and I was like, oh well, I'll try to share as much of it as I can. I had a longer version, but I ended up coming to like mentally about 100 slides. And I was like, oh no, that might be too long.
Awesome.
So.
Does anybody else want to speak? Just like I said, click the little, I think it looks like a little hand, and we can let you take part. Okay, there's one, right? Do you see that, Fuzzy? Oh, there we go.
Oh.
Hey guys, hey Fuzzy.
Oh,
hey
hello.
Robert.
Welcome.
Can you guys hear me?
Hernandez.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, hey guys, great. This was awesome. I really appreciate the show and tell chat. I was just had a quick question for you, Fuzzy. You know, just in general of I don't know, maybe I missed this earlier. I apologize for coming in late, but I'm wondering, like, have you had any experience doing indie, like, I mean, solo um, game jams as well,
Uh,
or did you just kind of go into it with people?
not game jams. I've done solo projects. I have another project that's about 80% solo. Um, and I say it's about 80% solo because every now and then I do have Nick that I ask him for stuff. Um, but yeah, like that's more or less where my solo experience goes right now.
Isn't that kind
Oh,
of the
okay.
nature of Ludum Dare?
Yeah, so I haven't done a Ludum Dare in solo. Solo also has like a team competition. So when we did the Nightmare project, we did it all three of us together. So they have the solo portion and then they have the team portion. So yeah,
Yeah,
we ended up doing the
I
team.
get. Yeah, the reason I ask is, I guess, because I haven't done game jams yet. You know, I'm pretty relatively new to all of it, as I'm currently right now. I'm just kind of working on little individual projects and polishing them out within the scope of of a month, and then building that up to create a game for 1 month, and then after that, you know, building one to do like 3 months. But I'm wanting to, you know, as well, you know, obviously, like, get involved with more community and work with teams. But in my mind, I guess I think it would be best to kind of start out doing solo game jams in order to kind of like get.
Mm-hmm.
I did one a while back, but I guess I was just wondering what you guys' thoughts were on that. As then I would think then you can kind of gauge what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and then from there go into you know, game jams with more of a collaborative
Yeah. So
mindset.
so Sam did that same thing, and he actually released a couple of projects from just going solo on a project and doing solo game jams. Um, I had a hard time thinking of that because it in my mind I always thought of it like, okay, you have somebody who needs to focus on code and someone who needs to focus on art, minimum, right? Like it's very hard to like to do both. But I know other people who think very differently. Like Sam was like, "Oh no, I'm pretty sure I can do all of it," and he did, and he released all his own projects just by doing that. And so, but for me, I always had like a hard time thinking of it as like two different ways. Like oh, at minimum you need at least two. Um, to I think I could do it at some point solo. My only concern nowadays is that I know so much of like coding and Unity that if I switch to art, I I feel that it would kind of affect me a little bit because I would be a straight up beginner and I'm not sure that I could do everything that I would consider I could add to a project. So it's more of like I just need to build the confidence in myself. But I know that if as long as you have confidence in yourself and what you're doing, especially hit the goal that you want, like it's totally doable. Like there is no right or wrong approach.
Yeah, I have two thoughts on that. One is that a team of two, uh, like if you could find yourself an artist and you're a coder like me, or the opposite, if you're an artist and you need a coder, a team of two is essentially going solo, is what I'm saying. Um, Most of your project management problems kind of disappear if there's only two people. Not all of them. Um, so that's my first thought for you. And the second one is that, again, I'm a coder. So if I just wanted to participate in a game jam and kind of test out my skills and kind of gauge where they're at right now, then I could find uh, free assets to use, uh, and
Mm,
just
yeah,
to be able to get that prototype out, right?
yeah, that's true. I mean, on the solo project that I'm working on right now, I'd say at least half the assets that I'm using are they're all assets that I got from the Unity Asset Store or Fab.com. And I think I spent like a few days because I knew what I wanted to make. I spent like a few days finding the right art style that I wanted, and I found some pretty consistent assets that I really liked. So I got them, and fortunately they all work really well together. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that as a programmer, a very common thing that we use just to get things moving is what we call placeholder art, which means sometimes it might just be a cube, for example, that represents the player, just so that we can get the gameplay going. So yeah, you can go it solo. You don't have to necessarily, um, uh, in that regard, if there's skill sets that you don't have, then you can find substitutes for it, I guess is what I'm saying. Especially, like you said, just to get yourself out there, get yourself doing something. Otherwise, it's real easy just to always have a reason why I can't start. Oh, I can't start because I don't have an artist, right? What do you
Yeah.
think, Mix Nandez? Did you take yourself out of voice? There he goes again.
Oh. Um.
Hey guys, yo, no, thank you. That was a good feedback. I mean, I'm not against either. You know, I think there's space for both options. You know, to kind of go at it solo and kind of test your abilities to multitask, but at the same time, you know, yeah, it's always, you know, sounds great, the idea of being able to work with other people, especially in a limited time frame, and kind of like test everyone's wits and collaboration efforts. I think that's also, you know, part of. Yeah, I'm one of the people that believe there's no such thing as solo game development. Essentially, you know, at the end of the day, it
Mhm.
kind of takes a little village to make things. You know, as much as it would be great to be able to do everything, it's just, you know, you know, I do some pixel art, but I'm not like, you know, thriving artist in it or any, you know, and there's things that I just can't do, and that's totally fine. You know, that's the whole point, right?
Yeah. There's a. What was I gonna add to that? Oh yeah. Like also, I find there's people like all over the place. But the main thing that I found is that um you kind of need to also find people that fit your vibe too. Um, uh, so meaning that like if you want you want to find projects that you're interested in. I know this isn't exactly a question you asked, but you need to find projects that you're interested in, and find people who like vibe with the same project that you like or don't. Um, and that's just that makes a big difference too. Because then if you find people who's not that interested in the project, like it's gonna show within a few weeks or within a few months, and then afterwards, like you're not gonna keep working with them anymore. And that's happened a lot. So for me, like I'm very grateful of the fact that I have like Nick from the very start of the project, because he's been with me literally from the beginning. And then I still have like I still have Sam. Like I know that if we ever did like a Nightmare 2 or a few other projects, like Sam would be with me like right on from the beginning. Um, and also some of the guys that I've kind of picked up from all the failed projects, like the ones that I have, I would say are like really reliable. So sometimes you kind of have to um, you know, sort through all the bad apples. Not saying that they're bad, saying that like maybe you're not a match for them. Um, to find the ones that are a match with you too. So that was also another thing that I've experienced through going so many projects.
What is your core skill, Mix Nandez?
I'm currently a developer and a coder, but I'm learning kind of a little of everything at this point. I mean, I really do enjoy uh, coding and also pixel art and making small animations. But I mean, you know, for the side for the kind of game, the one game, you know, that I have in my head, that dream game that I want to make. I know that it's not something that I'm want to dive into it by myself, but it's like, you know, like you said, Fuzzy, it's about, you know, um as you go along, you meet people and you meet people that you I feel like it's organically kind of will happen, you know, when you meet people that have the same interest. For me, it's really I'm really into 2D gun and run style, like Contra style games, and those aesthetics, and like the kind of like retro pixel art from, like, you know, back in my early days, you know, like late 80s 90s Super NES, Game Gear graphics, and that's not for everyone. So that's but a lot of people also share that interest, right? And it's about meeting those people and organically, yeah, like you say, like kind of forming a team of people that you speak each other out in projects like that. And I think that's how to go about it. So
Oh yeah, 100%. Um,
Right?
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, go for it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think finding the right vibe is really important too. I remember meeting a couple of people that I thought were really cool at GDC, but we just didn't vibe. So that was kind of a bit of like its own thing. It's like, dang, like, like I think this person is really cool, but um, I don't know what else to really say. Or like they work on something really cool, like there, for instance, I know at least a good portion of the developers on Obsidian, um and they actually don't live too far from me, and I think they're like super cool, but I do a lot of things outside of my normal work, which is still indie development, and a lot of them will talk about their favorite games, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could vibe with you guys more, but because I do so much like work and then indie dev, it's like I can't talk about the same games too, you know? I'm just like, dang, that sucks.
yeah,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
they're so cool.
Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, you mentioned Obsidian. I just recently discovered that app, and I think it's awesome. Like, I love it for kind of building a database of coding and Unity systems and stuff. I think it's great. Maybe
Oh,
it's not
that.
related to this.
Oh yeah, when I met Obsidian Entertainment.
Oh,
The
right on.
the
Yeah.
the yeah, they were cool. But yeah, it's funny. I also use Obsidian the app too. Um, basically for work stuff. Um, okay, but what I did want to say is I do want to end this for the recording, so that I'm gonna cut up the recording a little bit, and then I'm not sure what to do with it yet. Like
Oh,
maybe.
I'll give you the info for uploading it to the YouTube channel.
Okay, sweet. And then yeah, it'll be uploaded there, and then we'll share for everybody, and then we can continue chatting either through voice or continue chatting on through regular chat as well. And hopefully, you know, we can build this out and then give more opportunities for people who want to show stuff later.
Yeah, and I know I speak for Fuzzy in saying that you're all welcome and encouraged to come up with a topic that I'm sure there's something that both of you guys know, Bisage and Mignandez, that you could share, and you could do one of these just like Fuzzy did. So think about that and let us know. And yeah, Fuzzy, go ahead and just end the recording, and we can keep chatting here if that's what everybody wants to do.
Sweet.